Hi, I'm Morna Gerard, and I'm interviewing Gregg Daugherty for Georgia State University's Gender and Sexuality Oral History Project. The date is July 27, 2018, and the interview is taking place in Special Collections at GSU. So, Gregg, today we're going to talk about your involvement with Atlanta's gay sports leagues. But before we do that, I want to kind of contextualize it, and I know that you've talked a little bit about this in your other interviews, but just kind of go back over your interest in sports generally, like when you were a kid, what sports you were interested in, what sports you played, and that kind of thing, so that it makes sense once you're an adult that you go into playing sports.
Well, it was kind of the obvious, being 6'9", that the first sport was basketball. And when I was first time I played was in high school, but of course I did the junior varsity basketball team and then went to varsity basketball. And thanks to a really good coach, Chuck Owens, I was able to get conditioned training. He really had a good effect on me, and I got a full scholarship to the University of Tennessee, where I played ball. I actually stayed there for 2 years and then went to Western Carolina University to play basketball also, just transferred a scholarship and played there. Went to Western primarily because I began to get a focus to want to teach. I realized after 2 years of college, this is what I wanted to do, and of course even changed my major. I went in as a biology major, changed to an education major, art education major, graduated with a BA in art education. And then once moving to Atlanta, and of course working in the publications, I became exposed to all the different facets that Atlanta's LGBT community had. And to my surprise, major gay sports, events, leagues, participations. I mean, we're talking about everything from, there was softball, bowling, soccer, rugby, and volleyball. And even, and then I even felt to where there were card games scenarios. So it was really, yeah, I know, really quite a range to which you went, yada. And then by association of friends, I went to a couple of the softball games. And that original motivation was because of having the Armory as one of my clients for Cruise Magazine. This was in 1978, and then of course just the orientation with that. Then right in 1981, which is when the softball league kicked off. And actually they had softball games going ever since '76.
I was going to ask you that, like how long had
There had been softball, the different bars had softball teams that played in Piedmont Park. And then what happened is that in 1981, Greg Troyan, manager of the Armory, had formed, he had earlier formed the Armorettes. The Armorettes were to perform for Sunday sports events in the Armory as cheerleaders in the front bar. They'd have the TVs all around and they would have the crowd, and they all dressed alike. And football was sports names. No, not in drag. Sports names. They would go and be in their same jersey, you know, doing cheers and passing out Jell-O shooters, because you could back then, and so forth like that. And then every now and then one of them would come out, you know, face painted, wig on, whatever, and perform. Or the halftime show, would be all, you know, a lot of that. But then from there, they became part of the team. So then if they formed a team, and they played, there was about 5 or 6 teams, played in Piedmont Park, and no, actually there were 8. There were 8 teams that played in Piedmont Park, and sponsored by the bars, every one of them. And Then Gregg Daugherty had a huge thing about sports. He was just a major drive, just loved the sports. And he was from Milwaukee, and in Milwaukee, they founded the North American Gay Amateur Athletic Association, NAGA. And NAGA was obviously national, but it included Puerto Rico and Toronto, or Canada. But Toronto was the only city that was part of it. And in Puerto Rico, it was San Juan. And so they organized, Atlanta organized the league to be a part of. Gregg knew Matt Raymond, Sam Beaufort, and Ed DeCaccia, who were the founders of NAGA. And Mr. DeCaccia was a huge asset in our development as well, and I had the honor of meeting him several times. And when they came down here for the World Series, I worked with him. But because of Gregg Daugherty's back and forth with them, and of course being from the same city where it all formed, he was from there, whatever, they came, whatever, and got it together. And in 1981, we founded the Hotlanta Softball League, men's and women's division leagues. And at that time, the very first teams that were formed were not as rigid in the structure that NAGA has, but they developed in time.
So what year was the national organization established?
76.
Okay.
76.
And for each, like, if there were bars that were sponsoring the teams, was it one team per bar, or was it like a male team and a female team?
Yes.
Or
See both of the above.
Okay.
For example, the Armory initially had one team, but that was only for like a year. And then they had a girls team. And then the Armory at one point had 3 teams, because you had different divisions. They were on skill levels. A was the top, all the way down to rec. A, B, C, D, rec in the men's division. The women's division did competitive and rec.
Okay.
You had fewer women's teams.
And the men's teams, the sort of like the A, like would the people who played on that division, would they be like have like a really solid sports background, or they were just?
What helped you determine that that thing was skill level. And actually, there was a team, there was a group, I'm going to call them a committee. That committee was composed of the coaches of all the teams and your commissioner, secretary. I mean, you have a whole board of people, and they literally go and put each player through, they watch you play, and they determine how good are you at picking up a ball, how far do you have to go. When he hits, how hard does he hit? How often does he hit? Is he fast enough to go here and there? You had defensive and offensive, and they checking a box. They had a form, and you checked the box.
For each player?
For each player, and you were ranked a number. You were given a ranking number, and the number was it was 1 to 25, and if you were a 15 and up, you had to play on an A or B team. You had to. And what happened is they take the number, NAGA devised this, it's a NAGA form. They take that number and they add up, so you have each of your players, and they add up those numbers and come to a total. And that total determines which division you play in. It was really smart. Once you got it, you went, gotcha. Also, one of the things that was interesting to me, but I got it in a way after having an explanation, was you could, in the men's division, you could not have more than 2 straight players on your team.
And why was that?
It was the function, the purpose, the cause of the mission of NAGA was to provide gay athletes with an opportunity to play on a level that is totally focused the way sports, be they in schools or professionally, are. This is a commitment for you to expedite and put in your best at your level. In our system, gays, mostly men, are not allowed, especially if you're going back in the day,
yep,
or were not allowed the opportunity to really participate in sports and things like that. The straight boys got more of a chance to be on the team. The straight boys were more in there because they were more socially promoted to that part. So the whole function of NAGA, and it's one of the reasons I just, once I got it, the mission, and that was the function, and that it was to allow these gay individuals to really put it out there and really, really go for it, I just committed myself to it. I went, this is the way to go, because that was what I was taught as a kid. And I come from a family of sports. My father was a football player. My mother played tennis, you know, that kind of thing. And then, of course, my two brothers both played basketball. But the other thing with that was as going to the ball games, and I will never forget watching the Farr Library, which was a gay bar up on Farr Road in Buckhead, big bar, nice bar, playing Bulldogs. And these were their 2A teams. And it was my first game I ever saw, excuse the goosebumps, first game I ever saw, the Hot Ice Softball League, that wasn't campy, you know what I mean? It was the first A division game. And it was of the same caliber of ball game as I saw in college. Say, when the University of Tennessee is playing Auburn, or Florida State softball, Florida State baseball, because in college men played baseball, girls played softball. But it was just that caliber of sport. I mean, it was to the point that they have a rule in the A division, you can only put so many balls over the fence. Get it? So there's all these, the structure of NAGA was just thought through, really well developed, and it created these parameters that made you, you know, focus. This is what I've got to do to participate in this.
So once you know, so I'm trying to think how you get from, you have to get yourself on a team to be evaluated.
Well, you've got a coach that's wanting you on the team. So these are my nominees for this team. This is who I want to play on my team. And actually, you could have practices and things and whatever, and then they would assign you, obviously you gotta have an appointment, they gotta set a date. And so we're gonna come see you next Saturday, yada, 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 or whenever y'all have practice or whatever. And I remember I would even, like, we got to the point because later as the league moved on, it got large. And even now, you know, the Hot Ice Softball League, it's almost 50 teams.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you just kind of have to do whatever. And there's more than one league now in Atlanta. So, but the thing was, you set your appointment whenever. And you know, and then, I've had several situations where I had to move. I'd have to say, well, we're gonna have to let you go. But if you want to, you know, here's JoJo, you know, he's got the, you know, why don't you go play with them, you know them, or introduce them or something, you know, whatever.
So once you knew what level you were, did you, like, was it up to the player to go seek out a team, or were you kind of known and you were asked to join a team?
Not sure I understand.
So like if you find out that you're like either B or an A.
Right. Player.
Do you then seek out a team that's a B or an A?
You find someone in that division.
Okay.
Yeah. And other thing with that really became a norm, and once you get your team together, you stay together. For example, I was on the Blue Knights or team, which is was my team that I formed and whatever, and we played together 8 years. You just, this is set, this is the whatever. There was even a rule that said that, you know, a skill level could increase, but it couldn't increase that much. And so you couldn't lose a player because, you know, they got better or whatever. You know, even though there was a thing where they would watch for you, because some people cheat. You know, it is sports, and as heard someone say many times, I've said, well, it is sports, and they go, yeah, and it's not synonymous to one country or one culture or whatever. It's synonymous to human nature. But so they'd watch, and if they think that there's any of that, you would do that. But
so if a team's sticking together all that time, I assume then that there was a pretty kind of cohesive.
Oh my God, the friendship to this day. And I haven't been really around the softball league since 2004. And, the bond, or 2002, excuse me, but the bond is just amazing. And you make this friendship and whatever, and, just John Vega was one of the straight boys played on the team, and he just had his third child last year, and we threw a party, and all like that. I went to the hospital, checking on Sarah, all of that kind of stuff. Just an incredible bond. And the other thing that really makes a big difference was we also were major tournament teams. We played ball like 9 to 10 months out of the year, traveling a lot. And you go off on these trips together, nothing like removing you and sending you in to do something, especially a tournament, where I didn't pack my bags and come out here to hang out for what, I came here for hardware. And I came here to beat everyone that comes on the ball field with us. We'll have a beer at the bar afterwards, but,
It's amazing what having like a really solid purpose like that for a group together is like even
and it
more.
bonds you even more. Because I used to love the fact, the first tournament, the Birmingham tournament was always at Easter. And the Atlanta Softball League starts right about that time. It's always in March and April. That's when we start because of the weather, that we're ready to go. And so we'd go, so Birmingham would be the tournament to go. And my whole purpose, and the players would just go, you're so different about us going to Birmingham. You have us just, but to you, Birmingham's just practice. And I went, it is. Because we'll go to Birmingham. And then that winter that we didn't do anything or whatever, unless maybe we ran off to play in Florida, which we would. It was many a Thanksgiving I spent in Fort Lauderdale playing softball. And to my mother's dismay. To the, to go and do that. And all of a sudden, it just got you ready for the season. Because they would go, I remember we'd be in the middle of the tournament, they go, we get it, Greg, we get it. Yeah.
Now, so 2 people on the team could be straight.
2 straight boys.
And did many heterosexual men want to be on the team?
Mm-hmm.
So there were people who were turned down?
Yeah, there was several that you couldn't do, or even the guys that would do the, well, I could, like be gay for next Sunday or whatever. I'm fine with it. And prove it. And I'm like, okay, just chill out. That's not necessary. But no. And it wasn't the same with girls, because I've had pretty much every team I coached had girls on it. And one, Angela Hunter, just amazing. She won Miss, we have Miss and Ms. Ms was for the girls, HSL, it's a pageant, fundraiser, whatever, and of course Miss was drag. And she won the Miss HSL. She plays on a boys team. She won the lesbian version of the pageant. Took talent, the whole bit, had this guy. She could sing. Very attractive African-American girl, had an incredible voice, to the point that the next thing we come to practice, and she shows us this phone message that she got from this recruiter that wanted to chat with her about her singing. Yeah, and she's actually been recorded as a sound person for 2 movies, actually. So, but she and Peggy Lunge, forgive me with sometimes I don't remember the names. Peggy Lunge. Angela was gay. Peggy was straight. And Peggy and her 2 boys would come with us and in the dugout, and even John and his little girl. We'd have the kids with us. And it was always a unique thing, because here comes this gay team, and we got kids, and whatever, and
So then you have a women's
division
and a men's division, but the women are allowed to play in the men's division?
Girls can play in the men's division. Now, whichever you sign up for, that's what you're committed to.
I was about to say, you're not
You
allowed
can't
to
do both. No, no, no. One or the other. And men cannot play in the women's division.
Why is that?
Because of the off-putting, the unbalancing of skill level because of physicality. Also, women's softball is different size than the men's ball. The women's softball is in between a baseball and a softball in size. You probably know that. When they hit it, it comes harder, comes faster. Trust me, I was a pitcher, and I did not like pitching to the girls because that ball was coming back. But the women's division was very the same as it was the same as us. We had a couple of great teams. The Heat, which was sponsored by Backstreet, was incredible. They won the World Series 4 times.
Wow.
And the one that was really, probably one of my best experiences in San Francisco was going to the San Francisco World Series, because I saw it in numbers, but I didn't get it till I got there, the size of their gay community. And we're talking, this was like 88, 89, right in that whole era, and it was just huge. Their league, they had 4 leagues, and each of them basically, Naga had a max for how many teams you could have. They had 3 leagues, they had 3 leagues, and the 3 leagues, the reason they had 3 is because 2 had maxed. And I thought, you have 60 teams in 2 leagues, and then another one with 25 in. What do y'all do besides play ball? Jesus. But they had, and our girls team went, and it was, I loved also, whenever they played, we'd finish our games, and whenever they played, and there was a couple of us teams, not just my team, but a couple of us would go, and we were their cheering section. And I loved it. We would take our water bottles, put rocks in them, put the top back on, let's get about 100 of those going and see how the competition feels. So just love that.
Well, so I want to talk about logistics here.
Sure.
So how often did you play, how often did each team play in a week?
Oh, in a week, each Sunday. We all had games.
Sunday.
Games were on Sunday. You had 2. You had 2 games every Sunday, weather provided.
And how many games overall were being played on a Sunday?
Well, we got to right about 1998. That's when we were large. This league we got really big. As a matter of fact, we were closing in on the max. And we had a game 8 and 6. There was an 8 a.m., there was a 6 a.m., and you got 5 ball fields.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be my next question. So how many deals did you have?
And there was, I don't know if they ever had an opting out. I think you had to play. Everybody had to play, and and of course then we were also at Southside, which was the largest scenario for the Havana Softball League.
So why did you move from Piedmont Park to Southside?
Didn't go from there.
Oh.
They went from Piedmont to Shady Valley Park, which is on Buford Highway, Cheshire Bridge, Lenox. You go up, there's the Greens Liquor Store.
Yes.
Well, if you don't go all the way, just go up and turn before the Greens Liquor Store and go over into that neighborhood. It's a private park. And they had a ball field, 1. And we would play the games there. It took a long time to play because the league wasn't that large. We're talking, it was in the 80s.
Okay.
It was in the 80s.
Okay.
It was like 86 while I was playing. And I was actually not playing with the Army. That was me playing on my very first team, which was the Bar on Peachtree. So that was like 1986. That's when I started playing. And they did that. Then after that, they moved to Southside. And now they play, and then they moved to Southside, and then now I've played 1 year, then I left. So it was in 2004 to 2002. They moved to off Fulton Industrial, and now they play in Conyers.
It can't be easy to find a park or an area big enough to manage
Right.
all of those.
And you're paying for it. you know, because it's got to have a regular ball field with a backdrop, you know, yada yada, stands for people, whatever. And now they're getting them where there's even like a concession, and you know, and restrooms, and you know, it's got to be a park, especially for people to come. Southside was amazing though, because it was just really well maintained. It was heading towards the airport off 75 down there.
So did the league maintain it, or did the park?
The city of Atlanta.
Okay.
It was property of the city of Atlanta, and you paid a fee, and the Hot Atlanta Softball League had it on Sunday, and then somebody had it on Friday, and somebody had it on Saturday, and then, you know, during the spring and fall, summers and whatever, there were people playing there at night. You had games normally starting over there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, even like on a Wednesday. And it was really, really great. And it had a roundhouse with the ball fields coming off of it, and then you had 2 more down there. And the way they set it up was, these were the boys, and there was the girls, you know, and then when we had tournaments, we would, especially when we had the World Series here, we had Piedmont Park, and we had Southside, because we needed both. Especially the '98 World Series, there was 171 teams here.
It's like the Olympics.
Pretty much. And I was on that board, and it was like everything from, you know, schlepping coolers to, you know, you didn't have a position, you know, you did the promotions, you did whatever, and then when it came time for you to go, you put your t-shirt, your tennis shoes on, and we're gonna help. It was wonderful though. Yeah. It was wonderful.
And I want to come back to that a little bit later on. So who was managing, I know this is a lot of like really detailed logistical stuff, but I think this is really important stuff. Who was managing the league generally in Atlanta?
You had a committee, an elected committee with a commissioner, assistant commissioner, parliamentarian, secretary. It's a 10, 12 person board, and you had men and women. The women, the league, and they could, when they had the elections, it could be men or women, but what they did do was, because the league was predominantly male, the main commission board was, and we did have a woman commissioner. It was Nana Gooch, who was the coach of the Heat, that very same ball team I was talking about. She was very involved with the guys. But it was a large committee, and you had these different folks that were on the different, you know, you had a job. I was secretary for 2 years, for two terms. And that was how policy was taken care of. People protesting, because your team is, you should not be in this, you could do that. You could protest, yada, yada, yada. It happened more in tournaments when you go into cities and things, but that, or just, that's it. And they met regularly, and, you know, watch things. Right now, there's everything from what do you put up on the website, and who's putting stuff out in the media and stuff like that. So you have a commissioner who's the boss.
And that person's elected.
Yeah, there are 5 people elected. Commissioner, assistant commissioner, parliamentarian, and somebody else, a rules chair kind of thing. They're elected. And then the the main guy, the commissioner, for example, chooses his secretary and his whatever to be the staffing and whatever. And that was just like Lonberger and Jim Marks.
So when were you secretary?
I was secretary in 1990. My first time as secretary was in '94.
Okay.
And I did 2 terms back to back. And I did Lonberger, who went on to become the NAGA commissioner, and as a matter of fact, just undid his NAGA commissionership about 4 years from now. And then I also worked with Jim Marks. Jim Marks was commissioner, and I was his secretary. Of course, he is Bubba Delicious, the drag queen. We also were Reds together and played softball at the Armory. And so, yeah, they just kept me on.
So was there any drama while you were
Are you kidding? We're talking about Queens. We're talking about rules. We're talking about softball. We're talking about it's my way or the highway. No, there was no drama. Of course not. what time is it? No, it just depended on the day of what you're doing with it, whatever, because it was a constant thing. And you also are operating a jurisdiction over sports and competition. And so there's that. And especially when you have units that are tied together and whatever. And not to mention, many a time, the sponsor could be the one aggregating. You know, that many a time the sponsor, it was not unusual in a meeting or something or whatever to have this scenario where so-and-so and so-and-so are not getting along, and it's like, really? And that's a surprise to you. So.
And it was mostly bars that were the sponsors?
Very much. It's changed a little bit now, but it was very much bar.
Were there any teams that were not bar sponsored?
There were a couple that were organizations, but had some funding from, and you would have collaborations where they'd have like multiple sponsors, and maybe a magazine would be involved. Because I remembered David magazine and even Guide magazine would do that. And certain things like I remember a couple of the restaurants, having a team and whatever, and even such interesting ones as the Peasant Restaurant, which was very popular in Atlanta, and they came in and did stuff like that. And it wasn't unusual to see Mr. Nygren and some of them even come to the ball games and stuff. So it was a lot. The community participation as audience was a lot easier when it was Piedmont and Southside, especially Southside, because Backstreet did a shuttle. You come to the Backstreet parking lot, get in this shuttle bus, and they took you to Southside. They would come back, they would go again, and it even went somewhere else. They would even go somewhere else. But yeah.
So how many supporters would you get on a regular sort of Sunday?
You mean in the stands?
Yeah.
Each field had a pretty large bleacher set on both sides, and sometimes, like right about 2 or 3 o'clock, it was not unusual to have, several hundred. Yeah, I mean, several hundred. And once things kind of moved on, and your team's so like you're now going through the season and you've got an undefeated and you've got lost one ball game and they're about to play each other, or 2 undefeated teams, and say they have a following anyway because it's one of the Armory teams or one of Backstreet's teams or something, Weekends Warehouse, the bigger bars, having a team that's going to play each other, would draw a crowd, and especially if the bar participated in helping get people down there. Because it wasn't just the Backstreet that would do the shuttles. Some of the ones that were like out, on the north end would do them. Cheshire Bridge would do it.
So if, I would assume that and this I might be wrong, but I would assume that the people who played in the A and B sort of teams would be very serious about. Did it become like more fun and less serious the further down?
The only teams, no, I've noted, even in the D division. I played in C, and C was the largest division of the men's divisions, of the men's league. It was the largest division. You had the most teams. Because you were right in the middle. You were right in the middle. A and B teams could play each other, but C and D could not. And the A and B teams didn't play each other a lot, but they would, like the B teams would have maybe a game with 1 or 2. And part of that was because the A division was never very large. There was never a large number of teams. They maybe had 7, maybe had 6, whereas the B division might have 15 teams. Then you got to the C division and you got 20 teams, that kind of thing. So, because it was always interesting how the C teams would play all day. The A teams, you'd have your games, they're gone. They're leaving by 2 or 3 o'clock and it's 5 o'clock and we're going, okay, will somebody please put this over the fence because I gotta go. But no, that competitive thing was, just there. And D was because you gotta remember, Each of these are represented in the World Series. And then what they did develop, right about 2000, they developed the rec division. The rec division is not eligible for the World Series. It's just you going to play, the rules of just the whole structure of it was less. Some of the same parameters were, but the rec division, and the rec division was really the one where you just kind of, it was just, wild. And I think one of the main things that one of the gentlemen on the board mentioned, that the only thing they really have to do with the rec division is just make sure that everybody doesn't get too drunk or whatever like that, because they have a rule about it. NAGA has a rule about it, and softball league about, consumption during a ball game, that you basically would be told to leave the park.
And if you were on a team, was there an expectation of attendance, or?
It wasn't very hard to do that. Yes, I mean, it was just as if you were playing in college or you were playing in, whatever. You have to realize money's spent on you. You've got jerseys, you've got equipment, you've got to wear, you got to wear softball cleats, you got to buy a glove. We have practice. You got things to do on the own yourself, like going to a batting cage. On your, you and so forth and so on. So you've made this commitment. So, and we always, and then before the game, we warm up, so we're going to all meet, yada, yada, yada. A lot of, and I myself included, of us went to the game together. There was at least 4 people in the car with me going to a ball game. And that's if I was driving, and my buddy Chris, he had an SUV, so hello, and he went near me. And so, that kind of a thing, just off and on.
And you mentioned batting cages. Was there an expectation that you would practice? Through the week before?
Yeah, pretty much everybody did. And there was, even after, when they moved the ball, when we were south side, Shady Valley, where they had the ball games that I told you for a while, was our popular place to practice. And not a lot of folks did it. So there was like about 4 teams, 4 of us, that would practice over there, because we would communicate with the other team, y'all need it, when y'all gonna practice and whatever. And you practice for like 2 hours, or what we needed, or if we were gonna go out of town and needed it more, whatever. And I have a good friend, I was just talking to him this morning, who played on the AB, depending, division, and he trained us, Randy Hurst, and he trained us. And I first met him living with Lisa King in 1978 when I moved here, and him and his lover, so I've known him 40 years. But he would train us, and I owe him a lot, because boy, it was just, and I learned that whole thing that I learned from sports from a long time ago. The reason you have practice is muscle memory. Do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And then when you're in a ball game, and you don't have to think, your body does it, and that's why you do it. And he just taught us, and the effect was so obvious in the first tournament we went to. We were training with him to go to the tournament, and we went to this tournament, this Tampa, Gasparilla, and I remember just standing there and just going, oh my God. All I did for like 3 days was, oh my God. And the players, and even myself, just this thing, because he taught me, I'm not a fast runner, I'm just not. And so I never forget him telling me in his very thick South Georgia accent, if you put it at the fence or over the fence, that speed thing is just a moot point. So we would go to the batting cage, and he would teach me where to stand, how to do it, and he goes, you're not short, just put your arms out and put that 200 and whatever, and he goes, just hate the ball. Get an attitude towards that ball. He goes, and it's amazing. And I just, I played the most incredible game of my life. I'm just crushing it. And we had it so that the shorter, faster guys were in front of myself and Jason Harper, the big guys. And so we get a couple of them on, and then here comes me and Lucy and whatever. And it was like, you ready to run? Okay. So, but those are things you learn. And so I just really really good to learn that. And some of that information also, you know, kind of trickled down in my exposure with Gregg Daugherty in the very early days. Because he was such a sports-minded nut, really.
So the bars or whoever was sponsoring you would pay for your uniforms? Mm-hmm. For your travel?
Yes and no. What we did was, once I came away from, when I was at the Armory, the answer was yes. The Armory sent us, and that's where I learned about the air room ride. Your air room and ride was paid for. Your airplane there, if we're flying, and the room that you're going to stay in, which is going to probably be you and 3 other people, and the ride, which would be for a van or vans to put the group of us in, and someone's going to drive, and that's your transportation. We do everything in a unit. You don't go any, you know, whatever, unless, well, like in our case, whenever we went out to go shopping or run around, we did it en masse. But what I did was, when Blake's became the sponsor in 2000, and then what I did would go and would get sponsors, and I put your name on the banner, and I had restaurants and whatever, and I had this thing where I would just go and sell them, and everybody was like, "Where did you get these?" And I went, "What do you think I do for a living?" Okay, I work in advertising for Game Magazine. Notice any of the logos? Yeah, they're all slow. So but you know, and they got exposure. They got their name out there. One thing I remember now was, because I have one of the banners and I had it up and I was showing it, they go, "There are no websites on there." And I went, "Yeah, it's called 19." Because now that's what you would do. You'd have their logo and their website so they could go. Excuse me. But it's very, very, Blake's was a wonderful sponsor though. I mean, all I pretty much had to tell them was what we needed to do. I was very, straightforward about so many people, I remember the most expensive trip we had to do was when we were in the World Series, to go to the World Series. It was in San Francisco, and the distance, and once I realized the motels, the hotels, the whatever, but San Francisco was expensive, just is expensive, and the whole thing, and but we had an incredible season score. We went to the World Series, and we were 33-3, undefeated in hot nose softball, and had lost 3 games in a tournament, and had already won 4 tournaments: Tampa, Nashville, and Houston. And so they just kind of said, "How much do you need?" Yeah, and we're going to have to change, and you've got to have, okay, you can't wear the same uniform. 4 uniforms. Mm-hmm. 1 pant, but 4 tops. I remember having to, one mistake we made was, because we played here, we do the sleeveless, the logo, your name across the back, jersey, and they were this kind of meshy thing, because, hello, where do we play? And even in the South, I don't care where you're going, it's going to be whatever. And San Francisco was cold. I even bought a pullover jersey, because it would be, the weather change was very unique. You'd have medium days, whatever, we went to the pier and saw Alcatraz, and the whole drill, and Fisherman's Wharf. And then the sun went down, the temperature would drop 40 degrees. I came back with bronchitis and walking pneumonia. I came back with a sunburn on my forehead and walking pneumonia. My hand to God. I'm serious. That was San Francisco.
So I want to listen to your personal experience, but because I know nothing about softball and softball.
Sure.
I think a lot of people who are going to interact with this interview probably also don't. Can you explain to me how you get from playing on a weekly league to all the way to a tournament within another city? What do you have to win here to get to here, and then to the bigger, the World Series?
The difference, okay, the World Series, and there's a difference between World Series and tournament. The tournaments are invitational. You pay a fee, an entry fee, you go. Anybody can do it. There's no limitation. You just gotta have 18 players, gotta have 18 people on a roster, and they allow you to maybe not have 12, but not have, you can lose a couple, but you gotta have 15. The World Series, the Atlanta, and each city is different. Atlanta, for each division, and they do it by the size. Naga determines how many players you can send. You have a winner in each division. Each division is the person who wins the most games. Okay? And one of the things you can do, so you win your division, you also have the option of picking up players from other teams to go on your team, as long as those numbers work out. That skill level number thing has got to still work out. Excuse me, but you have the option of picking up players.
Just for the tournament?
Just for the World Series.
World Series.
You can do it for tournament too, I'm sorry, yes, you can. But you have to win in your different divisions, and if the size of your league determines how many teams you can have from each division. For example, now, with Atlanta's size, Atlanta is allowed 2 teams for each division, women included. And so you've got that. So they're sending, that's 8, that's 10 teams. No, that's 12 teams. Is it? Yes, 2 times 6 it is.
So you win your division here in Atlanta.
And you're going.
And you go, and you're immediately then into...
Immediately going. You're immediately going to the World Series, and then you go to the World Series, and they do a bracket. You've seen those sports brackets on TV, yada, 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 plays whatever, and then you progress to the big game, whatever like that. And you're ranked according to how many games you've won in this whole bracket thing, just like if you're gonna do the NCAA, whatever, you're ranked, and whatever like that. And if so you're in the C division, and there's, 40 teams playing in the C division, number 1 plays 40, number 2 plays 39. That's the way they do it. So going to the World Series and not having a really good, ranking, even though the remedy to that most leagues will do to help you out, is help you pick up other players. It's like, okay, we're going to help you out. We're going to fluff this so we're not, And that was usually the case when you had your smaller cities like Cincinnati or, whatever that would come. You would, or even they gave some advantages to Toronto because they don't have long years to play and practice, do they? So you got those disadvantages. And of course the other guys like Florida and California that play all year long.
So that was going to be my next question, is like, what is this softball season from when to when? Or is it all year long? Like
I mentioned before, it was not unusual for us to play 9 months out of the year. Normally we would kick off because many of Thanksgiving would be, in Fort Lauderdale. Many, I've put several there. Like I said, my mother wasn't happy about it at all. Gasparilla, which is that tournament, that festival they have in Tampa. That's, for the Pirates invaded that, whatever like that. We would do that. Dallas was warm. We could go do that. And of course, California, didn't do a lot of trips to California because they were expensive. But we played in World Series. I played Armory, World Series in San Diego. That was a painful one. Lost the championship game. Nothing like losing the championship game. And then, that kind of thing, where you had a all year. And these tournaments would position themselves seasonally because you realize they're getting money. We would pay $300 and something to $400 was the admission fee. Well, do that times 50, and that kind of thing. And of course there were those tournaments that were just wonderful, exciting, and fabulous. New York, you're going to play in Central Park. You're going to go to all the whatevers. You know, we would go to this wonderful bar which we have here now, one of Lips. I went to the first Lips. It was like 1992. You went where your waiter or your waitress, well, came in as a waiter and was your waitress. Drag queen would come over, they would serve you whatever, then go over and produce. But the thing with them was, many of them sang live. Our girls performed drag, but they would sing live. And it was really, really awesome. Really, really great.
Which was your favorite city to go to?
That's a tough one. I liked Toronto a lot. Their setup, they were prepared for you. It was really nice. It was kind of removed from the city, but it was still around Lake Ontario, really ready for you. Also, you got exposure to a lot of non-Naga people because you had teams from Montreal. We played our first British team. There were 2 teams that were there that were from Suffolk, you know, England. You know, just, is it Sussex? Sussex, isn't it?
Suffolk and Sussex.
Sussex, let's put it like that, that's who it was. England, and we played them. They had several of them. There was, it was Finland. There was a gay softball team from Finland. I went, really? And so that kind of exposure was nice for that. Yeah. Skill level, Dallas. I was just, because I didn't really, by the time being to Dallas before I ever got to really go out and be in the gay community, I was whoa impressed with that whole Wyman Hill thing. It was just really formal and beautiful and just really, really nice. And the size of their gay community was a surprise to me. It was large, a lot to do, and good competition. But yeah, Fort Lauderdale, spoiling. It's just so nice. And we would go, and it was just like, okay, do you have your room booked at the beach yet? We're going to be at South Beach right after this game. We're leaving. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. And, you know, get my swim trunks. So, you know, that kind of thing.
So let's go to your personal experience. Like, let's really focus in on that. You started with, was it the Bar and Peachtree Shooters?
The Bar and Peachtree Shooters.
1986.
And that was...
How did you find that? I mean, can you talk, do you remember being watched by the people who have to watch you and evaluate your...
And it was a hoot because I thought, look, you can just take a break, relax. First of all, I've never played softball before, but, and the reason that I was even motivated to do it was the Bar and Peachtree was my client. And I had, they actually opened, because I was at Cruise, and they didn't come around till, you know, mid-80s. And he had just opened Dennis Gilman. And I was like, okay. And it was just, and we had this wonderful mixed team and all that. That's why I got that right off the bat. That's why I always wanted to be able to team with boys and girls and whatever. And so the orientation for the team and everything was, a lot of it was to help with the PR of the bar. So we would have a lot of parties, you know, where folks would come and we're just in our jersey thing and whatever and all that kind of stuff. And that was, but also that was the year when I realized that the league was not just Atlanta. Because we had a team from Athens, my good friend Armando Villena, who played with me on the Armory, who lives near me. There was a team from Chattanooga, there was a team from Macon, and we had several players from Charlotte that came down and were on Atlanta teams. And I just thought, okay, I guess we're just the hub.
So, but they all played in Atlanta?
Yeah.
You had to come to Atlanta? You all didn't go out?
No,
okay.
We didn't go to, no, they had to come here. Because they have joined Atlanta Softball League, so you got to play Atlanta. Yeah, good question though. But no, so we would do that. So I played on the Bar and Peachtree, the Shooters, and my playing with them was when was the last year of Piedmont Park. And then the next year, which was my last year on the Shooters, was when we went to Shawnee Valley. And, but yes, and my whole tryouts thing, whatever, it was a hoot. We practiced at Dresden Park, and they came over, and actually I remember it was interesting because 4 of the people that were going to be doing the judging, it was several of us, they did our team, and we're going to be practicing right after us, and I can't remember who the commissioner was then, but then so we just got out there, and as we're practicing, they would just sometimes say, okay, can we see him? Things like, so there's someone at the home plate, and they're hitting the ball, and you're fielding. You're just scooping, fielding, and making whatever. And they would say, okay, put it over, because you get judged on how easy it is for you to get a ball here, as opposed to, and how well do you handle something straight at you. Outfielders, how far do you have to move to catch that ball in the hand? How good are you at scooping the ball up off the ground? Those are things. We got 25 questions, and you're checking a box, and the box has a 1, 2, 3. Bad, okay, really good. And then they ranked that. The form was, well, when I saw it and finally had to, got the gist of it, I went, boy, this was a couple of meetings.
That's solid.
This was really thought through, and whatever. And this came from Naga, so it came from, and you have to realize you have 21 cities participating in Naga at that time. And so the input has to come from, every city gets an input into this, and whatever. And if there's well, I don't like that, well, then there's a vote. It's or And that's it. It was I used to laugh about the fact that there was a democracy, but it had its limitations, But yeah, that was a pretty scary. I actually visit that, and that horribly intimidated by it because of Dennis and them saying, well, whatever they determined, y'all are serving. He made it was a unit from the start.
That's great.
Yeah.
And did you have an expectation you would be in the C division, or did you?
I did not know.
Okay.
I did not know. I knew we would be. Was there a D then? Yeah, there was. I think there was. Yeah, I knew we were not going to be at the top of it because of a couple of the other players. I also, and I didn't say it, but I knew it. I knew it wasn't the worst player, and I'd never played before, and it was just okay. I went, you're going to be fine, darling. Just don't mess your pants or whatever. It was like, okay, it's going to be fine. I mean, let's put it this way. They chose me to be one of the pitchers, and the pitcher is like a very prominent part of the day, and I was chosen. He goes, you be one of the pitchers, Greg. I went, I can. Okay, we're going to work on this.
That was going to be my next question. What position did you play?
I was a pitcher.
And that was the whole time you were playing?
I pitched pretty much forever, and I got pretty good at it. The more I did it, because I would practice pitching, and I had some good experience. Armando was a big help, the friend from Athens, and he was a great pitcher. And then when I went to the Armory, he left the Athens team, I left, we all kind of, and I remember the day we changed teams, we went to the host bar thing for the sign-up. You had team sign-ups, and we just kind of, there was about 9 of us from all these different teams that had kind of got to know each other, and we had chatted about it. I remember in a bar, I think it was the bar on P Street, we just chatted about, I'd like to play for the Armory, and then Jimmy Marshall had said, we'd love to have you.
So what made you want to play for the Armory?
Competitivism. It was lacking. Like I said, we were the bar on Peachtree team. It was a party. It was good. It was good orientation to people. What I'm joining, HSL, yay. Now it's time to take it up, because then you have that question in your mind. Well, why are you playing? Are you playing for a social outlet? Or are you playing because you'd like to be good at it? And it's just in the blood.
And how, percentage-wise, the breakdown of players who were in the different leagues, in the league, were most people wanting to play to play competitively?
Competitivism is very prominent.
Okay.
It's very, very prominent. It's just like in the mission of the Hotlanta Softball League. That's why it was just so. That's why it really developed really quickly, because the NAGA, the mission is to provide for gay men and women an outlet to be able to competitively participate in a sport, just as if you were playing in college or high school or whatever, or the pros or whatever, and not just, a pickup game in a park. This is with structure and rules and whatever, and you're wanting to focus yourself to be the best athlete you possibly can. And that determination, in many cases, is why you would have players. I met many people that, they played for a few years, and then they're in the stands. And so they still were around, but they just couldn't quite or didn't want to continue, but they liked the outing and whatever and whatever. And that was something that was really interesting, because I know quite a few folks that played for a year or two, or maybe a game or two, and then next thing you know, they're in the stands with the cooler, or they became scorekeepers. Or you see what I'm saying? So they still were in the unit, whatever. Because in our team, partners of the players, the boyfriend or one girlfriend, like I said, Susie, was a scorekeeper, or help with the coolers and stuff, because we bring our own, bottled water and whatever, and we got 4 kids, so gotta have some candy bars and bananas and stuff. Hello.
Did y'all have any say in the design of your uniforms, or was
absolutely. Totally. I mean, we were there. We had, I was blessed with the input, and even folks that were, by even their occupations, were into clothes or were designing hoo-has and, all that kind of stuff. Had a graphic designer on the team, yeah, and John George, and just all of that, and we'd find the places that did the shirts and whatever and all this kind of stuff, and because we'd make casual t-shirt to wear. In fact, just yesterday I had on my Blue Knights t-shirt, and then, or in many cases, for like with Blake's and whatever like that, the bar had them. There was an Armory t-shirt, Blake's, whatever. So you had that to wear also, but then there came the team thing. And so you have something casual to wear, or you have a jersey to wear. And a lot of times we would do the t-shirt, because we did that sleeveless mesh thing that I told you. And then 2 sets, of softball pants. And they are kind of tight on you and come kind of to the knee, especially for sliders, which you don't have to worry about me, they really no slide. But for sliding, they even make these things that come underneath your shorts that go down further, just to keep as much of your skin on your body as possible. So, but yeah, it was pretty much yours. Now, there were a few occasions where I know that teams had, the sponsor wanted to kind of have some input in.
Yeah.
And it was probably a good idea.
Well, they're paying for them, aren't they?
Most, not all. There were teams that had to pay for their own, uniforms and stuff like that. Yeah, because MCC, the church, they had a team, and they kind of supported themselves. I think they did get funding from the church, because you had to pay a league fee. You had to pay here's my participation fee. They pay that, and they were very rec, just whatever, had a good time. And I enjoyed watching them, because it was just loads of fun. You got your mix for the day. You went to watch the A teams play. These boys just crush it and run, and then you come back and just watch people forget to run when they hit the ball, and just it's
like the little kids playing with the...
and then go that way. Yes, that.
So what year did you join the Armorettes?
I joined the Armorettes, let's see, that was the year that we did it was 88. Okay. 88. It was 88.
So you're 86, you joined the Shooters, and then 88 you're done.
Right. It was 88, and yeah, because it was in the fall. What happened was the Gregg Daugherty passed away, and with his passing,
what year was that?
That was I'm gonna think 84.
Okay.
He passed in 84. And when he passed in 84, then the original armorettes kept doing what they were doing, but then they moved. They actually left the armory and went to Bulldogs. And then Mr. Copeland, go ahead.
I was going to say, did the Armory, were they upset that
They had a problem. There was a.
The name was still the Armory?
No, yeah. Well, I mean, there's the Armorettes today, and they're performing. You know, they were at Burkhart's and other whatever. So it was it's the name thing. Yeah, there was some whatever's there, except I don't think there was any legal hoo-ha to hold them in place there. But they didn't do that for long, because then Mr. Copeland, who owned, Colonel Copeland, who owned the Armory, incredible man, so quiet, but could be so, and he and Jim Marshall, who became the manager of the Armory, and Jimmy, and now works in Washington as part of one of the gay museums. It's just an area, speaking of. But they decided that they really needed to up the AIDS participation, because the Armorettes had always been, doing the AIDS fundraisers and whatever. And right about 86, 88, there was, the push to get, more involved, more on it, and all of that, and whatever. And I had played a year with, that's right, it was 88. I had played a year with the Armory Angels team. And then they asked if any of us would like to form the Armorettes, the new Armorettes. And several of us had done drag performances for softball fundraisers to help raise money to go softball fundraisers. And so they said, yeah.
So, try to get this clear. So the Armory Angels.
Softball team.
So were they were attached to the Armory?
Correct.
At that time, was that at the same time that the Armorette softball team was still attached to the Armory?
Armorette softball team wasn't.
The
Armorette softball team was the players that were on the Armory Angels. So the Armory Angels, you had the Armory Falcons, they were the A team, and you had the Armory Angels, who were the B team. And then you had the girls, Falconettes. And then the Armory Angels, they came to us and said, would you all like to form a team to do, drag and still play softball? And not everybody, just whoever wants to, whatever. And actually, they kind of had a picked group. And so then we said, yes, I think that's a great idea. And because Mr. Copeland said, if you want to do that, he goes, I'll pretty much give you anything you want. And I remember anything you want, and he was very serious. They revamped the showroom, yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden, there was all this money for everything you wanted, and a DJ, and okay. And so we had the Armory showroom. And so then what the Armory did is the Armory said, okay, and this is where my friend Randy that I was telling you about came in, because then Randy took one of Randy's teams and they became the Angels. So now we have A Division Falcons, B Division Angels with Randy's team, and the C Division is the Armorettes team and the girls. And so then we began to travel a good bit. Also, one of the things with my Angels team that went to that became the Armorettes, it got buffered up a little bit, even though we were always in the C Division. Now the Armory just has a B team, and so they just sort of buffered that up a little bit. We got quite a few different players on, but the one thing and then the Armorettes that went to Bulldogs undid the Armorette name.
Gotcha.
and they became something else for Bulldogs, and they performed on the deck in the back. Back then they had the Sunday thing with the cookout. But the thing that just made it the winning thing is with any scenario, you know, you can have a group of people that put it together, but you know, you're only as good as your cast. And we would just, I mean, for the entire length of my time doing the overrep, you know, scenario, which went on from 88 to 90, right at 96, 97.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was just, and even after I went into the Blue Knights thing, I performed.
So initially then that Armorettes, that particular iteration of the Armorettes was you were playing softball and you were
performing. And the thing that was just amazing was, and it really helped me keep that same mindset when I transitioned into my scenario, was the travel. OMG. The travel just was off the leash. I mean, to the point, and the number of us, because also what happened was the bar allowed for us to have someone that, so we're gonna go perform, we're doing this big show, and we're gonna do this thing at the Copa in Ybor City, in Tampa, with some of the top female impersonators in the world. Tiffany Arriagas, I sat at her table, her station. These are incredible female impersonators. Florida has always. They still dominate, because we've lost it, but Florida's just off the leash. Gorgeous. But the thing we did to perform, so we had all this stuff, because we were like, ooh, Ybor, ooh, Tampa. And he was like, yeah, okay, rehearsals start tomorrow. So we had like 7 or 8 people, and their total job was to move clothes, props, hoo-ha, stuff, and then get it in the hotel room and put it away, make sure it's secure, whatever, and then get into your armorette, whatever t-shirt, your team thing, and get to the ball field. You know, and had a van to move them. So the teams we got, because we're here to play softball and then do that, whatever. And then, and whenever we performed, which and I really loved that bit at the Copa, because we raised this amazing amount of money. And we always gave it to that city's AIDS organization. We never kept the tips in a bucket, you know. And at the end of it, we always sang, "We are the world."
So when you're, the day that you play softball, was it Sunday?
Yes.
Then is it Sunday that you perform as well?
Mm-hmm. Sunday night, we have one every Sunday night.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. You wouldn't believe the times that I've gotten just, you know, especially if we'd have like an 8 a.m. or whatever, or let's just have an intense game and wind up, you know, going to the Armory, or, you know, I had this friend that lived in Midtown, so then we would go, you know, take a shower, whatever like that, whatever. It was easier when I lived closer, but then when I wound up moving out, you know, but it was just crazy.
And the people who were your audience when you were performing as the Armorettes?
It was a mix. It was a mix, because it was a very low base. I mean, it was standing room only. The room sat about 700 something, and you had tables, and then you had this circular thing that went around where people could stand, and there was a rail, and then there was a DJ's booth in here, and then and a big full stage, and then back around here is a dressing room, and we came in, you could come in on 2 different sides, whatever, curtain, the whole bit, la 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 la. And, you know, it would be, we had a lot of the regulars that sat at the bar, and I remember there was like about 4 straight ladies that were there every day. They'd get off work, or, you know, this one in particular, I loved her to death. She was just there all the time. And then they loved the shows, because our shows started right about 8. It wasn't late, it's Sunday. And it would start about 8. And there was a line, and they had the chain, you know, and the whole bit.
That must have felt kind of cool, like being part of that, where, you know, people really wanted to come see you.
Yeah, And would even do the thing, because I always had a thing of Gregg comes in, Debbie performs, and Gregg leaves. And so that was just me. I had to do the persona change, because it was acting.
Talk to me about your persona.
Well, I liked representing, being different. I got this, there was just this thing, I used to say this, and it was so crazy, because when my cousins used to ask me, so when do you go in and when do you do it, whatever, and I went, taste of lipstick. As soon as I taste the lipstick, I'm no longer Gregg. And I'm going, do you think that's crazy? She goes, you wouldn't believe how many actors and actresses, that's exactly how you go into character. Something triggers it. And and I had my own music.
What music did you?
It was to the point that if Patti LaBelle came on, the audience knew it was me. My favorite, but popular one that I made popular was Stir It Up. And I was known for the nails and doing my hands, because I would get these Dragon Lady nails, and I just loved to get these. And this Asian girl I knew, and she did nails, those Korean nail shops, and she helped me, she made me some. And, but the thing that was very, very, very prominent with what we did was, and I'll never forget Jimmy saying it once, and it sunk in big time. The only thing you bring to this is lip sync, okay? Anyone can paint their face, anyone can put on whatever. That's it. So, you want the gig? Learn the freaking song. That's it. All you gotta do. Now, of course, we say that, and the other thing he would do is that, a little tacky, whatever like this. So, we were kind of polished, and you saw some of the photos. We pulled it together, and it was camp, but then, as I always said, my camp is, I'm 6'9". Hello. and there was 4 of us that were very tall.
Where did you get your clothes?
Ooh. From a lot of other performers, or not, maybe not get from them, but where to go to get them. Other cities. Love you, Miami. Oh my God, these shops, these places, because I like to be glamorous. I like glamour. I like Google beads. I liked ethnic. There was a piece where we did that opening for the Olympics, and center stage down on West Peachtree was the gay center for the Olympics, for the entire Olympics. It's where all the gay folks were encouraged to come, and there were all kind of performers and wonderful things going on. It was amazing, the A-listers that had come to town and would be there. And they had an opening ceremony there, and we performed.
How did you get that gig?
Oh, Jimmy Marshall. And the Gay Center folks here in Atlanta were connected with them. And so they just got it all hooked up. And we did the We Are the World thing, and we all kind of did different hoo-haws and whatever. And this lady, she's just wonderful, but she worked with us a lot when I was a guide. And so there was this huge piece of fabric. It was just big old kind of African-ish looking. It wasn't really the kente cloth kind of thing, but anyway, it was just this big print, very loose, whatever kind of cloth. And I think she had it as a drape or something. And I went, that is just really, really neat. And she goes, you really like that? I said, I could probably, so I wrapped it around, attached it to my arm, and we got one of those those Ethiopian pillbox things, 20 bracelets on this arm, up to here, whatever, got out there. And I did the lead for We Are the World, We Are the Children. And they videoed it, and it wound up being, on the release from the center. And there was 7 of us, and each of us had a different look. And we had to do, it had to be people different. You are doing, you know what the song is, you know what your theme is, so pull it together and do it. And there's one child, Iona, I love her, Iona Trailer, was next to me, and she had a fro, and it was rainbow, and whatever. And so we did, the different ethnics, but also the different people looks and stuff and whatever. and just nailed it. The crowd went berserk. It was like, God, you all knew the words and you wrote this, whatever. It's called rehearsal for it. So.
That must have felt really kind of great that this is kind of an important moment.
It was, and I remembered when I was first being told about it, because we came to get together and Jimmy was telling us, we've been asked to do this, but he says, oh, I've got us in there, and this is what I think we should do, and yada, yada, yada. And he goes, excuse me, and he says, I'm gonna let you all be the ones to kind of come up with the word and whatever, but the thing was, he goes, you realize there's going to be someone coming out and saying welcome and announcing it, and then you all are going to come out and perform, and you're going to be the only drag performance in that, because they have a gay men's chorus, and then they had this other symbol come perform and whatever, and then it was also when all these people that have come here for the Olympics and they're gay and they're out there, and then they're going to be able to visit people that have booths. This building is a gay center. And so there was that, and then just going out into the world, and there we were going to perform.
No pressure.
And no pressure at all. And we rehearsed for a month, because we had to, a couple of days a week, whatever like that, to pull it together. And it wasn't just the number and how we did it, because we moved. There was the line, and then there was this thing where you had this, and then every other person moved forward, and we would change the whatever. And I went from being in the front to being in the back and the center, because I'm the tallest, and but it was really, really good. And it was a very strong message. I also was very proud for us, and we got the numbers of bar owners, members of the whatever like that committees. The Pride Committee sent us a plaque just going, atta girls, way to go, just really out there, way to represent, and even conversations with the people, because after, there about Atlanta, and just this one guy even said to me, he goes, I'd like to live here. I said, yeah, you would.
Now you said there's some A-list people there?
There was a what?
Some A-listers there?
Yeah. There were quite a few folks from that time. One of the people that I was surprised was there, Felicia Rashad. She was Mrs. Bill Cosby on The Cosby Show. She was there, and I come to find out it had to do with a relative of hers that was here for the Olympics that was gay. And she didn't know any details, because she wasn't talking to me, she was talking to the group, but she was talking to us backstage, and came in just to say, knock 'em dead, break a leg, way to go. And I was just like, no pressure. But yes, it was a wonderful time, and life-changing for a lot of people.
Well, and I think the fact that you're in making people happy by performing, you're also raising money. So it feels good for you too. What an incredibly positive experience.
And it was, to the point that I remembered we got to the point where we got so much motivated by it that members of the team that, for example, like we're performing on stage and we're raising money and we're doing this, whatever city, whatever. Members of the team who were in the audience or backstage and whatever, with this bucket, we had this bucket, and it had armorette written around it. It had been brazed in on a beautiful big silver bucket with the red armorette letters on it. And they would come and get the bucket and walk around, and just that kind of thing. Or I would do things like if I was performing and whatever like that, I'd come off the stage, make it easier for you to give me that money. Go get the money. I learned to do, and we found that we made much more. And what we always did then, before leaving, we had literally, this guy had got one of those things you get from the bank, where you put the money in and it tells you how much it is, and we would tell them, we would announce, we have raised X amount, yada, 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 whatever like that. I swear to you, I was completely blown away with that Copa performance, because we did a show, and there was, we came up with $6,000. You know, that's a lot of money in $1 bills. Not just all ones. Yes, of course, we got a couple of whatever, but predominantly. Excuse me.
When you went to, do you want some more water?
I got it, I'm good.
Okay. When you went to other cities, were they aware of who the Armorettes were? Or was it more popular in the Atlanta area?
My instant reaction would be after a while, yeah. But in the majority, yeah. And I think because you're going to have, pretty much in every city, you're going to have someone that's been to Atlanta. And, you know, back in the day, our gay community just really raged, you know. So I'm going to have to say pretty predominantly, yeah, that it was.
So was there, when you were playing, were you super competitive with the teams you were playing against, or were you pretty supportive of one another?
Well, you had sportsmanship.
Okay.
So, you know, you got to be a sport. You know, there's that whole thing, you play the game, and in the game, we do the high five and the line with each other and all like that. That's every game. But no, it's very, very competitive. Just, you know, just really go, go, go. You only had, I don't remember, we had a few instances where you would have folks that really thought because so many of the players on the team were, you know, were drag queens, that there might be, you know, a reason we could do this. We had a couple of comments, just a couple of comments. And it was, you know, I used to love that because even my buddy Randy would be sitting behind us or in maybe the dugout, and he would just go, perfect. That's just what I was so glad he said that. And I'm glad he was loud too. That's really, really good. This is going to be great. And so they have a rule, it's called mercy kill, where if you get to like the third inning and one team is ahead by 15 runs, ball game is over. They call it mercy kill. It's like, there's no way you can win. Forget it, you're really bad, so leave. And Randy would be sitting back there going, okay, mercy kill, here we go. And I'll never forget once, we were getting ready to go to the World Series, I don't remember what city, and we decided to practice to go get in a game somewhere to whatever. And so we went to Southside Park on a Thursday night because they had the straight league playing. And it was predominantly black league. And went down there and did the Army thing and whatever. And these guys, I never forget this guy we're about to play, they're each in the hole getting ready to do the yay, 3, win, go, whatever. And you could hear this guy with just loud mouth, guy just going on and on and on about, bunch of fags, we have got to beat them. Come on, guys, this is going to be easy. Told his girlfriend to start the car. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And I remember the silence went over. As a matter of fact, we couldn't even, we paused and just looked at each other. And then Jim Marks on the TV just sort of said, okay, you know what to do. And then, you know, did our cheer, the thing. Got up, went around, whatever like that. And they were good. It was a tough game. And we didn't get them in a mercy kill, but we beat them 9-5. And I remembered the conversation with them and hanging out with several of the guys after the game, just kind of going, so tell me again where you all, what's the deal? Well, why do you do that? I said, well, it's for AIDS fundraisers and stuff like that. Oh, and I never get this guy asking me, is that important? And he's asking me. And I remembered I never got a chance to answer him because he got bombarded by these responses. You know what I mean? I got over-talked. And I just sort of thought, what rock did you, okay. And to this day, you know, whenever I mention it, if I mention it, somebody goes, what would you have said? And I went, I still don't know. And that was like, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Wow. I still don't know. but it was a lot, and it was, you know, it was a really, really, really good thing. And the big thing about my softball career that, you know, did change was, you know, after a few years and was going with the Blake's team, because as the nights went on, I came away from I came away from being an Armoret. And then, and that's what really took the softball thing up a notch for me, because we really went into, and I was blessed with talent. And folks that came into my world that were not, you know, they were okay, but literally being with us, they got better. And you know, and all of that. And the scenarios. But
yeah, I wanted to move from the armor. I was like, why did you?
Sure.
Because that was actually my next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So you and I are
okay.
on par
We do that
here.
a lot.
Yes.
I appreciate it too.
So, what made you decide to leave the Armorettes?
It was basically just kind of a team thing. The group, out of the group, there was another group in the group. So there was a group of friends that I had within the group that had decided that the Armorettes thing need to be undone. I decided to move away from the Armorette thing. And the folks that were on the Armorette team then also formed another team that was not. So we just kind of had this transition from each other, both playing in the C division. So yes, that ball game when we had to beat each other was a party. But but hung out, but you know, and even my friend Armando, like I said, I just saw him recently. But I had this opportunity, and a part of it came with a conversation with the owner of Blake's, because that was one of my favorite places to go, and I watched just these different folks that I knew playing, that wanted to play, wanted to play on a team with us. And it wasn't about me, it was about us. And I just said, okay, and I remember we had one sign-up party at Blake's, and I still envision it now, because we had this, I don't know what the manager, he was just wonderful. But anyway, the Jello shooters, I thought, Lord, why? So, but anyway, it was maybe Mardi Gras. But we formed this team, and I remember the sign up and the people that came. And I remember I looked at Chris, my co-coach person, Chris McMurray, who also was my business partner, and with Performing Arts Media. And we just kind of went, I think we had like about 30-something names. And I thought, okay, what are we going to do? And so we went over and we had behind this school over in Briarcliff. And we went and I said, well, we're going to have to edit. We can't keep them all. And we did 2 practices and came down with the team, set the number, was that. And then literally, that was in 2000. Yes, that was in 2000. And 99, 2000. It was 99 and 2000 was when we started that. Because in 98, I was the Prince George, and then
yes,
the Blue Knights, and then moved on to the Knights.
So were you asked to coach the Blue Knights, or you just took that on yourself?
I took it, well, the Prince George Blue Knights.
Yeah,
Prince George was a restaurant
Uh-huh.
at the Armory. And so I coached that team. That was 1 year. But it was the year of the World Series coming here. And so I did the Prince George Blue Knights, and we took 4th. And it was and this was my first coaching period. And it just went really well. Very, very well. That World Series was incredible. And to my extent, I have to Edwin Rodriguez, who of the Armorettes was Fajita Marinara. Very popular, legendary. Everybody out there that hears that name is going to go, oh my God. I'll never forget as long as I live. He played shortstop. And he was pretty good at it, but we're all, adjusting and moving around and whatever. We're playing a side field, major ball game. We've gotten there. I'm just blown away we're winning. We're just winning. We lost our first game. And once you lose 3, you're out. And we lost 1. That was our first one. And I said, okay. So we just kind of kept. And Edwin did a triple play. The ball was hit to him, that's one out. He runs over, tags second, that's the other out. And then he throws to first, and the first baseman tags that guy out. That's 3 out. To do a triple is like legendary in, you know, the National Baseball League. But anyway, but we had it was a really, really wonderful tournament. Late night games, nothing like a ball game starting at 9 p.m. and you had one this morning at 10 a.m. Just, you know, that kind of competition level. But the shaping and molding you for the future, priceless, because it got you focused on a lot of those things that the NAGA is all about. You know, that we as gay athletes don't get. You know what I mean? And this is the kind of thing that really honed you. And that's what happened. And so then we played a game, Houston, God, the game went on forever. We play 7 innings normally. This game went for 11, to the point that the umpire says, the next one to score, you know, wins. And his name is Gary. His onstage name is Gina Gay. And he did it. He was only one up, nobody on base, and he launched it. And the gentleman in left center fielder, the ball's coming and he ran forward too quick, and then he realizes the ball's over him and he falls down on his butt, and the ball goes, Gary, all the way around. We won the ball game, and we took 4th. And there was a 3-way tie for 4th at that time. And that's the last trophy they gave. They just get 1st through 4th. And of course, it's that fabulous trophy. And of course, I love the trophy because it was created by Hans Fragel, international glass sculptor, legend. And of course, he's become a very good friend and works with my company still to this day. So wonderful things with that. But that's the thing.
And you were playing as well as coaching?
Playing and coaching. I was pitching and coaching. And then that was when I decided to go out on my own, because the Army decided they were going to just kind of keep, they did the restructuring, and so then whatever, the Blue Knights, and Blake said.
Yeah. Now, though, you were in the 98 series, you were on this board as
I was on the
Tell me what you had to do for that.
It was amazing. Talk about the multitask. I mean, you had a label for what you had to do, but was the planning. Everything from, because I worked with, because Lon was in charge of that, he was our chair. So my job was to work with the promotion. So I helped get sponsors. Once again, here I go with what I do for a living. So I went sponsors, starting off, of course, with all my clients. Backstreet, I need $1,500. Thank you, darling. You know, just finding places to do with everything, going and negotiating with the restaurants for food. We're going to have these ceremonies. It's going to be catered. As a matter of fact, Randy Hurst, his partner, has is a food supplier. So anyway, getting that kind of thing going on. And then everything else from, we had an event at Colony Square in their event, you know, the catering room, whatever, and negotiating with them. I negotiated with them to do the food thing. I negotiated them for them to set up, have the tables, yada, yada, yada. Gay Men's Corbis is going to do a performance over here. We're going to turn this around. Robert Ray, cabaret singer who performs now at 10 over there at Juniper in Monroe. He performed. We had several performers. Libby Whittemore, all this stuff, because Chuck and I did AIDS fundraisers, Cabaret, Window of Hope. And so I had contact with lots of vocal legends here in Atlanta, that kind of stuff, and of course our female impersonators.
So to put on, you know, to host.
Sure.
You have to have some.
Sure.
I mean, you can get people to sponsor stuff, but you're going to have some money.
And one of the ones, and I wasn't responsible for this, but one of the things was that we got money from the city. The city of Atlanta gave us money. The Bureau of Cultural Affairs gave us money, and for an event, because it was going to have an effect. They saw the collapse. The Bureau of Cultural Affairs, they do the jazz festival. So they saw, you know, and so they gave us money. It was interesting, the places that came, Coca-Cola gave a chunk of money. There was also Colony Square, didn't charge for the space. They just said, give us X amount for your food and your service. And Colony Square was the housing. We negotiated with them for the rooms. That sold out quick. Yeah. We had, like I said, it was over 171 teams. So it was a bunch of folks real quick. And not like, well, you know, everybody's got to have a place to stay. You even had Atlantans coming in to get rooms, to be in the mix of stuff. And of course, encouraging the bars to turn the party light on was, you know, not a problem. And of course, back then we had 24 hours. So it was just a lot. So the biggest problem most coaches had was, you know, the problem they had. Okay, I need you off your bar stool and into your room, that kind of thing. And that and getting our Toronto, I never forget the Toronto boys, teaching them you need to drink water and you need to come out. The heat stroke thing. We had several folks had to deal with that kind of stuff and just things.
What time of year was that?
It was in August. That's when the World Series is always. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with some of the guys that are getting ready to go to the World Series for this year, which is in Tampa. And they're looking forward to that. Last year it was in Seattle, which was really, I thought, well, that's nice, good. We can do August in Seattle, yeah.
How many days does it last?
It's a week.
Wow.
You come in on Monday and you play the Sunday. And and we did a parade that went from Civic Center up and around and into Piedmont Park. Sure did.
That's a lot of organizing.
Yeah, it is. There was the committee that I was on that did that. It was like 15 of us, and a lot of them were associated with the bar folks and stuff. And then there was a gay bar league. There was an organization, and it was the Bar Owners BOA, Bar Owners Association, and all of that. I remember Dina Collins of Hogan's all them were on it.
So for the things that you actually have to pay cash for, that you're getting supplied, you know, for free, does the host city have to come up with that money, or is the national organization helping out with
NAGA helps. NAGA does help. NAGA helps with a lot of stuff. NAGA helps you. NAGA has to agree with whatever your choices were for fields. Your umpires have to be paid. This is all league. This is all, you're just short of being a professional sporting organization, which of course the response to that is, if it's something you're paying for, then it is kind of professional, isn't it? You know, this is not just a church league, whatever. This is, you know, you're doing all of these things by official American sports, sanctioned, whatever. So you're getting these umpires also, a couple of them umpire professional games, they just happen to live here, you know, that kind of thing. But they did bring several in from the other leagues. I remember the Toronto umpires were here. They had they would come to the Puerto Rican umpires. I remember were here. I remember seeing them, and just making jokes with them on where to get good Puerto Rican food, and that kind of thing. It really took this scope out, but it was interesting having this group of people to work with who were very used to it. So all I had to do was just, you know, follow the lead, because I'm working with this group of people, you know, my commissioners and the committee, the people they brought in and whatever. A lot of them is their job. I mean, yeah. You know, so it was just sort of a follow the lead kind of thing. It was a huge success. It was one of the things, I guess that's why I keep putting it in my notes and mentioning it. I was very proud and pleased. I mean, it was just, as a matter of fact, one of the things I kept hearing from the players is that you don't really have to buy food, because Armory did open buffet on the patio every day from 2 to 7.
That's feeding a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Was. And Vickery's, there was a group of restaurants Oh, and the Cisco people, the Cisco food people donated. And then my friend Randy's partner, who has a catering company.
It must have felt really great for you being an active part of organising this, to actually see it blossom and do very well.
It was, it was, and to have a part in it. And I was, well, for example, the trophies. I was the one that negotiated with Hans Fragel to do the glass sculptures for the trophies, which I was thrilled able to get one of. Of course, I still pick on it about, can we tweak this and put my name? But the thing was just amazing, the support. And a lot of it was from companies that realized the gay community was, and I'm getting points with them by doing this. And the other thing was, this is my client base. So it was
You're
really
perfectly situated.
And it was that. And I learned a lot about, from these people I'm working with, who's this, oh, I didn't know that, or whatever. Oh, that's how that works.
Now, was that a year where you made it, your team made it to the...
We placed fourth. We got a trophy.
That was the year you were
That's the year we got the fourth place trophy.
So you're also playing as well. It's like
No. You wouldn't believe the number of times where I'll never forget, we were at Piedmont Park, because we had the games, because we were at Southside and Piedmont Park. And so you have a schedule, so you know where you know. So I'm here, because I love this, and so, but I'm helping. Anyway, myself and this, we're schlepping coolers. Water coolers, because in each dugout you had a cooler, those yellow things that you push the button and you fill the cup and whatever else. So I'm going and doing that, and then all of a sudden I get this Greg, they've canceled the ball game, so yours is going to start in 15 minutes. And I went, oh, really? So, but I loved, so I'm just, and then I turned around because I realized, so then Susan went, so I was just turning around and I thought, well, I have to go and find hoo-ha with my bag, because you have a batting bag. Well, everything was in that to make me whatever. And I turn around, and here comes the golf cart. We had rented about 10 of them to go with the different places, so that the committee members, whatever you needed, baby, and you had those, electronics weren't like they are today, but you had those mobile, whatever. I forget they even call them. But
like a walkie-talkie thing?
That is exactly what it was. Those long black, walkie-talkies. And here comes my buddy Ken, and he's flying. And he didn't even drive. He didn't have a driver's license, but he was doing well. And he had my bag and everything, and he pulls up and goes, I think you need this. And then I get in and change clothes, and we go. Play ball.
That must have been, were you tired at the end of that week?
Yeah. It was I'm not working for a couple of days, just, I'll be okay.
Were you performing that week as well, or was it just?
We did one. Okay. I did one armory performance, and it was actually at the beginning of the hoo-ha, and I didn't. And they had a show, but myself and several of the members didn't. And that was one of my last couple of years doing that. I did perform still in 1 year after going to Blake's.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Blake's. So Blake's Blue Nights. You choose your team. Was it all male, or were there females too?
No, still that whole scenario.
Always had that little.
We always had a girl. We always had at least one. I'm sorry. At the most, there were 3 girls once, but that was brief. But Angela Hunter played with us the entire time. She was on the, and I remember meeting her. We were in Tampa playing the tournament, and we played against her. I was playing for the Armory, so we played against the team she was on, because she was from Orlando. We played against her, and they beat us. And I remember there's like 5 of us standing there watching the game, and it was like, wow, wow, she's placing this ball. She just put that ball wherever she wanted, and she played left center, and God, was she fast, because she's a tall, slender, and just could move. And then we find out, okay, she, University of Florida, track and field. I went, okay, and then she moved here, and
you snapped her up.
yeah, and literally snapped her up. She was sitting in the bleachers, eating, and I wasn't playing, and I went over and went, hey, and she goes, because I had spoke to her, before several times and things, and went over, hey, and she again, so you live here now, and yada yada. She says, yeah. She says, I'm trying to settle it on the team thing. And I went, I think you look fabulous in blue. I did. Just go ahead and call it. And she went, she said, I'd love to play on your team. Is that what you're saying? And I went, loud and clear, sister. So she wanted to, she had actually thought about it and wanted to do it. So she played on the team, and she played with us for pretty much the entire time I coached.
So how long did you coach for the Blue Knights?
Ooh, forever. I grew old.
Did you stay with them until you retired?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 2002, 2004?
It was 99 to 2004.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And even through that time period, the owner of the bar kind of went away, and then and we continued to play because we used the management and stuff. But their support was just incredible, and but the chemistry. I mean, we year round were friends. Year round entertained each other. Year round, just going and doing. And like I said, and my traveling went up. If that was.
So tell me about the places you went to when you were playing with
the Blue Knights.
Yeah.
Well, we did everything in Florida. We did all the Florida tournaments. Florida had quite a few. There was 4 in Florida.
So
we did all 4 of them.
Fort Lauderdale?
Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami. We did all of them. With the last one being we went once, but we did Tampa, Orlando, and Fort Lauderdale every year. Always went to Birmingham at Easter. That was rehearsal. The other that I liked doing, and we did Toronto a lot because it was a fun trip, and I love being able to tell this now. Many folks did not have passports. So because we hadn't come to the problem with 9/11, so we would fly to Buffalo and rent a van, or in our case, a couple of vans. Remember, once it was 26 of us. So we would go to Buffalo and get a van, and then do Niagara. Well, we would do Niagara, then drive. But Niagara was wonderful. So we'd go to the falls and do the whole thing and all this, watch these people come up out of the water. It was crazy. But then drive. And I remember just, what's your purpose? We're here to play softball. It's okay, for recreation and yada yada. And everybody had to have a driver's license. And everybody showed their driver's license, and we'd go.
You didn't need a passport.
Mm-hmm. And just go. And and then came back and did the same thing, which of course was a trip because all the things would be in that van that you normally would have to pay duties or something on or whatever. I mean, it's especially with them having their fabulous Chinatown, Spadina. And I loved Asian anything, and so, yeah, my house. But yeah.
So, the folks in did you just, well, I'm trying to figure out why you enjoyed going to Canada.
It was the education of the culture, because it was a different culture. It was. The French influence I really liked. The mix of the players, because it took you a little bit better. We had an advantage. We did. And I'm saying it out in public for the first time. We had an advantage of playing them. And part of it I began to realize after a while was because they don't get to practice or play as long as their year's short. But we had an advantage playing them. We were all in our accreditation, NAGA straight up, not a problem, whatever. And generally just right off the bat would tend to go ahead. Went there 8 times. Well, I didn't play ball every time. I went there. I played ball 6 times.
And Blake's paid for that every time?
Huh?
Did Blake's pay for that every time?
Blake's or Armory. I went once with Armory, and then I went the other times with Blake's.
How much did that cost Blake's every time you went?
Well, it's air, room, and ride. The last, 2001, you have to recall, was us going for the World Series, so we were going to stay a long time. And there was more than a few. We did 26. We got air, room, and ride for 26 people. They did the same thing with us going to play in San Francisco, but the games were in San Jose. Just 45 miles to the south. That was expensive. But I remembered it was thousands of dollars. And basically, they just said, all right, you do it, here's how much. The thing with Blake's was they gave me a credit card. And said, man, I could just do it. And then we always have this situation where I'd asked for it, and I said, I want to do a team dinner. And they would say, yeah. We go to the World Series, the tournaments, I could have more than one team dinner. And then I remember in 2001, because we were sending, we're calling and telling, this is what we've done, and yada yada, here we go, whatever. And I remember they said, take them out. We got 3 team dinners because he was going to take them out. This is really great. And so.
Were all bars as supportive of that of their teams?
Not all, but a lot. And because there were some that were very supportive. Biggies that were supportive, well, the Armory, of course, the Heretic still is. The Heretic also had a lot of teams. I think they kind of still do, but I remembered at one time the Heretic had 4 teams. The Heretic had a girls team, which was kind of unique for the Heretic being sort of a very male bar. There was the Eagle, very supportive. There was the Cove, was pretty supportive of their teams. And yeah, there were some that were really fun. And the Far Library. The Far Library only had 2 teams. They did a girls and a boys team, both of them competitive. They were the Armory's biggest, the Army Falcon, the Army A team. They were the 2 A team, top A teams, and they dominated. And the Far Library team won. The Far Library's A team won several NAGA national championships. Several. They were incredible to watch. Incredible to watch. I remember the Los Angeles tournament. I was just like, okay, Jesus. Because that Los Angeles tournament, for some reason, there were a lot of A teams. Probably the most A teams I ever saw in a tournament. And I guess probably logistics had more to do with it. The populations are larger. I don't know. Skill level, you get to play all year.
Yeah.
But they had all of these A teams, and it was just like, so where'd all the B and whatever people go to? I mean, there were a lot. I mean, it was almost like going to some of the small tournaments,
yeah.
That kind of thing, and all A. Very large skill level. But the thing was with a lot of these tournaments, you really got the genre of the population, the place where you were. And then you have this ingredient with the fact that you've invited this multicultural kind of scenario to come in. But the Toronto series was very, very different. And I think the same motivation that we kind of had, because a lot of people wanted to go to Toronto. Toronto's a really interesting place. I liked it a lot. I mean, I went back twice, not to play softball. I went back for a vacation. I wanted to, and yes, because I'm an Asian art maniac, I've said it, my friends know. And I would hit Spadina constantly, that's the Chinatown. Largest Asian population outside of an Asian country.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, because of Mao, the fleeing from Mao. But the other thing was, just all of this other, the multicultural thing, because you get your Euro and Asian experience and whatever, and I learned a lot about crepes. And my friends go, what did you do? I went, I learned how to do crepes. I mean, I got them down, you know. And I said at once, I said, I would live there if it wasn't for 9 months of winter. I can't do 9 months of winter. I remember the Eaton Center, that large mall, and most of the city is underground. And I went, I can't do it. And I loved the place and the people. I met lots of people. And I remember going back and walking into the bar and having these reactions to me. And my friend would go, well, they know you, and I went, they should. So,
well, you stand out.
well, that too. Yeah, you can't miss me. But even if I only come by once a year, it's like, there he is.
It sounds like you were really able to do some really cool travel because of your experiences with
amazing.
softball.
And get to see our cultures in other places, like I was talking about, going into that wonderful section of Dallas, and everything's all built up and sculpted and very beautiful and whatever. Ybor City in Tampa, just amazing, you know, the Cuban culture, the whole thing there. It was the origination of the cigar factories, was what built Tampa. Ybor was the section of the world where the Cubans came in the 20s to set up cigar factories, and they went to, and that's what made Ybor City. You learn all these things and you're just going, so it's like these history lessons, you also get to see stuff. And unique things. One of the early tournaments of my first World Series with an Armory team, my very first World Series, we went to Philadelphia. And that was, as a matter of fact, I was looking at some of these photos of these old Polaroids that print out the date on the bottom. And one of the wonderful things, you know, even that I learned to this day, I will tell you, if you buy a Philly cheesesteak and they put it in a bag, and you see the grease stains on the bag, you got a good one. South Philly. But yeah, it was, yeah, just a lot of good stuff. And,
so the Blue Knights team, how many, like, because they ended up at World Series, didn't they?
We went to the World Series 6 times.
Really?
Yes, and then we came home with hardware 3 times. And literally, it literally took 3rd, 2nd, and then in 2001 in Toronto, we won the World Series.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That must be fun.
It was just a lot. Yeah, it was just a lot.
So what was the mood on the way back from that one?
Oh my God. You know, when I think about it, the thing I laugh about the most was, I don't think we could shut up for like 3 or 4 days. I mean, it was just, God, it was fabulous, it was wonderful.
Were you, at the point when you were like playing your last game, were you like, we can do this, this is ours to, you know, if you thought you could win at that point?
Yeah, the game before, because at this point the bracket has come down to where there's only 5 of us, and then I got to and I'm watching. There's a team I didn't want to play, and it was JR's, the bar in Dallas called JR's. It's their biggest bar, and I think to this day still is. Incredible place. Had a wonderful time there, visiting them, and I did not want to play them. And so this team from Nashville was beating them, and I thought, oh good, everything's going to be fine. And then there was a fluke, something happened, and literally just at the very, very end, you know, one of those last innings in the game, whatever like that, Dallas beat them by 1. So we had to play them. And they had always been sort of our big rival. Whenever we play each other in any city, you know, whenever we get to the sign-up thing or whatever, the coach and I, how are you, Ben? It is so good to see you. Here he goes. Let's practice this tone because we're probably not going to hear it again. Because during the game, he and I would have a fabulous time being just evil to each other. He's over by his dugout, I'm over by mine, and it's just like, yeah, eat it. You know, and just kind of, you know, which of course the umpires would go, that's 1. And but it was an incredible game, and we played them. We played them, and they beat us. And then we went on into loser's bracket, one more game to play, and we played the team from Charlotte. We beat them. And then we came back. There was a championship game, because JRs just didn't lose, they just kept going. So we came back, and we played. And it was probably one of the best games for us. Just the motivation, definitely the bruises. Had an outfielder dislocate his shoulder. You know, at one point, you know, putting an ice pack on a cheek because Scotty, you know, one of my straight boys, decides he's going to slide face first, which you don't do at softball, you do it on your butt. So, you know. Anyway, cut his cheek and whatever. And it was a tight game. Even the umpires later said, this was whatever.
Were you still playing at that?
Uh-huh.
You were so...
I was. I didn't play as much.
Okay.
I didn't play as much. I was the other pitcher. Jason Harper, Lucy, who did drag and was a drag performer. She performed at Model T and places like that. And I used to love him because he was always good. He was the one that used to pick that "we're playing drag queens" thing. He had long hair, and he would do his hair up in a ponytail on top of his head and put a curl. Not this going. Okay. And you hear these guys going, "Oh, we could beat them," and he just crushed them all. And he was one of the top batters on the team.
Really?
Always, just honey. And of course, we'd always laugh about the fact that, you know, he's South Georgia, just country as being. His mom would travel with us. His mom was at the World Series with us. His mom was great. And she would travel with us and the whole bit. And she knew how to do the score thing and all that. She'd be, they need more water. I need more water over here now. And just, his mom was great. And then, but he was an incredible pitcher. I mean, because we had that slow lob thing, and he would throw it and all like that. And he had a thing about being distracting. He's getting ready to pitch, but he would get you over. He would be distracting with facials and things, and just whatever. And he taught me a lot about the pitching, because we practiced over and over and over again. And he and I had an edge for striking you out. I'm going to come out, I'm putting a backspin on that ball. It's going to go. It's going to drop right at your feet. Right at your feet, close to your feet behind that plate, because hitting that ball, if I'm dropping it right here, is not easy. And I'm 100 feet away, so I kind of like, you know, whatever. But he was wonderful. And, but yeah, we won the game by a run.
Oh.
We won the championship game 3-2.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Good job. Now, did your family members ever come and watch you play?
Mm-hmm. My brother Brad came. Twice. Once he came to see us play, and the Blue Knights. He never did the Army games, and they were living here. This is when they were living here, and came to 2 games. He saw one, and he came to 1 game, and with my sister-in-law didn't come, but the kids came, and her brothers came. There was like a group of like, I don't know, about 12 of them, and they came out to Southside. And the game got forfeited. 2 forfeits ever. This was a forfeit. And so we won't talk about that. But he did get to see a ball game.
Okay.
Another game ball game.
Okay.
And hung out for it, and was just he kept going. And he kept for the rest of the day, even when we left, whenever he just goes, "You playing softball?" And he goes, "You can hit." And I'm like, well, he goes, "And don't tell me about being slow again. You can hit. You can hit the ball." He says, "You really effectively hit the ball." I went, "It gets me on first." But he was very impressed with the team. He was very impressed with the Knights. And he was, because he said, "Your mix is really good." Because and y'all are tight. He says, "I watched you interact when you were waiting to play. I mean, you're sitting to the side and you're drinking your water and you're talking, you're warming up." And he goes, and your camaraderie, he goes, that's how you win. And, you know, he, of course, was top draft choice, 1986, went to the University of North Carolina, and was top draft into the NBA, and then, you know.
So he knows about
quite a bit.
the importance of
Yeah.
team sort of camaraderie.
Now he's a retired NBA All-Star.
Awesome.
But it was, going back to that very first conversation, that comment about the purpose of the hospital and the softball league and all like that, was the conditioning that created that persona that I had on that team. Yes, we were that and whatever, and yes, I was lucky to have the individuals that would absorb the energy of what, you know, of why we're here and what we're doing and the cause and the purpose. But at the same time, it's what HSL is. It's what HSL is about, and just was really, really phenomenal. And we had several. I don't know that there's so many of the extra sporting leagues, but back then, of course, there was volleyball, and there was the bowling league, which was extraordinary, and Dixie Bowling. And then now, of course, they do have rugby, and they had the touch football.
Okay.
I'm getting it wrong, but they had those kind of things. And so, but the Hotline Softball League, just very predominant, you know, in treating that, and I think it's just an invaluable asset.
Well, what a great way for people to actually come together in a constructive, healthy, like all this camaraderie and
the people you
competition.
meet.
It's like
Right.
awesome.
And you get a little bit of an extra life purpose,
Yeah.
kind of thing, if that's a good terminology, if I'm on point with that, because you really get this whole thing about something else, and you get to find out if you can and can't do it. And that's why even with folks that like might have tried out or were in my world, you know, to play or whatever, and weren't real good at it, or you know, whatever. Like this one guy Eric that helped us a lot with just keep kind of being a scorekeeper, or even just helping with stuff, whatever. He played for a while. Well, he was out in right field, so I turned around to see what Eric is doing, and so he's sitting down out in right field smoking a cigarette. So Chris was like, "So should we?" I said, "Just leave him out there, and then when we come in, I got it." I'm like, "Eric, Poodle, it's been an honor to have you as a player." He goes, "You kicking me off the team?" And I went, "We're going to change your position. I'm not kicking you off the team because you want to be on this team. And so we want to have you on the team." But I think right field, you know, that it's just a waste of your time. So he got pretty good at the scorekeeping. And he got to the point that he would go and have conversations with the umpire about hello and just, you know, and just went, okay. So, but yeah.
And it's also good for everybody, whoever you are, to have a purpose that's not just about yourself. Like,
or your job.
Yeah, to have something extracurricular that is, you're helping.
What sports does for you. That's why I think it's why it's so pushed or profound with schools, you know, to play ball or to do something, and of course it's more expanded than that. They have golf and tennis and stuff. But the idea, that whole thing, and like I said, from that day one situation, I was blown away with the fact that in the gay community, that there was that. And I can't keep repeating it enough, the level and the purpose and the attitude, you know, if you want to just be here to have fun and whatever like that and whatever, there's the rec division, and you can do that. But if your intentions are to represent your city in the World Series on the big picture, you know, you have these other choices, and your skill level will find you a seat, honey. But, you know, it's going to be that. And you're going to be, and realize what you're going to do is you're getting ready to, your focus would be to take it up a notch and go out there and compete against other cities. And make all that work. I was grateful for the introduction to it. Once again, you know, I can't say thank you enough for Cruise Magazine and being introduced into the industry that I was in, that gave me orientation, you know, to the gay community and allowed me to do all of those things. And then also just the opportunity, with a blessing, to be introduced to all these people. Because when it came time for me to take the Blue Knights away from being Prince George Blue Knights and to go off to become Blake's Blue Knights, I had all these people around me who were on that team who will help me with this, and I can help with that. I know somebody else that does jerseys. I know this, whatever, and then I'm having conversations with, because when it came time for me to travel for tournaments and stuff, Blake's would let me get other sponsors and things, you know, put their logos on the banner. They had some choices they would prefer. I didn't. We had that conversation once, and I got it. When I decided to go, that's for tournament stuff. When I decided to go to the World Series, you know, I need a lot of, you know, what we're going to do. But it was just really, really wonderful. And I still know these people and hang out today.
Awesome.
Today.
Now you kind of retired from the game in 2004. What made you decide that was time?
Because I didn't. Couple of things. I had lost the fizzle for it. I had lost a lot of the folks that were going to play, that I've been playing with, were stepping away. And I came out of the season and just sort of felt like it wasn't the same place, it wasn't the same party, it wasn't the same scenario. That I didn't like the where we were playing. I didn't like that metro thing. It was too far. It was not together.
Having to travel to
45 minutes one direction, and the place was falling apart. The seats were.
And how? I mean, when did that happen? When
did they move out there? They were out there for. I did that 2-3 years.
Okay.
2-3
and then it got
years.
old.
Yeah, I just got. And then really having some of the main folks in my world, friends of mine, that just kind of said, "Yeah, I'm good." And to be honest with you, I'll remember the trip back from Toronto in 2001 when, you know, we won. And I remember my mom, talking to my mom, because I called her and I told her about it, and I was sitting there, whatever, and I was at the hotel, I was still in Toronto, and I was telling her about it, whatever, and she's screaming and yelling, and my grandmother was just like dancing. And, no, literally, my grandmother was dancing. We'll talk about that sometime. But, and my mother made the suggestion, she said, so, go out on top. And I went, I don't know that I can. She says, well, you can do anything. She says, but I think maybe you should go out on top. She said, you just achieved the pinnacle. She says, you know, you think? And it was in my mind, and I talked about it a bunch, and even, and if they were here right now, they'd be nodding behind me. I mentioned it a lot over the next 2 years. My friends you'd hear it constantly. And then in playing, we didn't travel as much. We did tournaments that were close, you know, and it began to shrink. It began to shrink to the point that actually, literally, when I did decide to undo going, I should have stopped sooner, because I really, my last year, I won't say I hated it, but I wasn't enjoying it at all. I would, after the ball game, leave.
Yeah,
that's not me.
That tells you.
I'd go watch somebody else play, hang out, you know, we got the cooler to drive around, whatever like that, I'd go. And so, you know, and Chris was kind of the reason I sort of stayed, because he was, you know, we worked together and all of that. Yeah, like I said, he worked with me, for me, he was my business manager. Yeah. And we co-coached the Blue Knights. And so, you know, it just kind of went. And Angela was one of the keys when she decided to leave. And she decided to leave because they founded a girls' league that played in Decatur, and which they still have. And she decided to go over there and play. And she did that 1 year and came back. And I laughed about that, and I went, oh, we could have told you. But, you know, so that was the thing. So, yeah, and I probably should have. I think I would probably What I think I should have done was play one more year and see what that is about. So you did 2001, fabulous. That's it. That's the pinnacle. That's the, one more year just to see what was going on. And that one more year was mediocre. I think that was when you should have taken your bow. Taken your bow and said thank you.
Let's talk about taking a bow. Is it 2013? You were inducted into the Atlanta Softball Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Now, how does that happen? How do you get
as
inducted?
a matter of fact, they're doing the voting for it right now. It always comes at the end of the year. To be a candidate for, you have to have participated in the league as a coach, as an officer, some kind of contribution to the league, and you also have to have been a part of the league for a long time. So you don't have to be the first three and be, for example, 2 of the people being nominated for this year have been players for 20 years. Plus, one of them is one of my former teammates, Daniel Middleton, whom I voted for. And everybody else had to because I went, okay, you got it? Great. So, and the whole league votes. And so I got nominated, and actually I was nominated the year before. And they have a limit to how many they can, there's 3 inductees per round. And I totally understood because the names that they did put in, I went, well, she's older than me. So, but that kind of thing. And then the next year I got nominated. And then the year after that, my buddy Randy, who trained us, he got nominated. And my co-coach, and Chris, my coach buddy, he got nominated 2 years ago from now. So
what happens? Is there an event where you're recognized?
You do, and you get a plaque. And they had it was Heretic. We did the Heretic. This year it's going to be at Amsterdam. Amsterdam. And it was it's an honor. And the thing is, you now become part of history because, so you go to the HSL website and there's, of your choices of menus, there's the Hall of Fame. And you click on it, and it gives you everybody in the Hall of Fame. There's your name. And they have a thing now where also all of the Hall of Famers, the teams they participated with, the team photos go up, or anything, pretty much the team photos. There are some officers, they're rare, that didn't play on teams, but that's rare. Okay. And in that case, their picture's there. But it was just a lot, and once again, the level of professionalism, you know what I mean, and just that whole, the sports acronym that the Holland Softball League, dedicates itself to. It's just it's attaboy.
It sounds like it's been like a really important part of your life.
And once again, just in being me, I don't take anything lightly. If we're in, I'm either going to do it and we're going to really do it, or thank you, but no. Yeah. And it just got in my blood, and like I told you right from the beginning, didn't know it was going to be something I'd really get into. Yes, I played sports, I played basketball, so that's not a problem, and that goes with the last name. But I just didn't know that softball, I never did softball. I remember being this big and doing the baseball thing with the ball on the stick. Yeah. And that was a church thing, and wasn't good at it. And but this was just really, really different. And the other thing I have to, if I've repeated myself, I'm not sorry. The people, the camaraderie, all of this bonding of people. And then when you get to the main day and the thing and you're going, oh my goodness, there's not a few of us. This is like huge. I mean, 40 teams, and you've got 20 people, not all of them players, but they're partners and they're friends or they're kids or whatever, per team. okay, we just approached 1,000 people, so I mean, or not 1,000, but a lot of people. And so, you know, it was just amazing, and they're just there. And it's amazing because you meet people. And then the other thing is, we're all here for the same purpose. So now you've got this sort of kindred thing. And
it's so constructive and positive.
I was going to say, like going to the concession stand, there's just, how are you? How was things? Is that good? Did she? Oh, okay. You know what I mean? That. Just a complete strangers, and then you're at the grocery store or whatever. I remember you. Didn't we see it? How'd that one man go? Did they lose again? You know, or just whatever. And I have to also say, it helped me with getting to know my sisters, the lesbians. I met so many, and we really dedicated ourselves to supporting the girls. So I mean, we would, you know, I told you about that, cheering for them and the whatever. And but then also you caught yourself in this thing where you'd be talking to them and doing whatever. And then when I was a committee member, they had women on the committees because we had you had a staff of the representing the girls' divisions that were part of the board. So that was just really good.
What an awesome community.
Yeah, really helped. And it's changed to Tish.
Yeah, my last question was going to be actually, is like, what's the state of softball today?
The thing I've learned is, because I haven't been to a game in a while, a year before last, the thing that's changed with it, they're playing in Conyers. Yeah. One of the things that's very unique is the sponsorship thing. Not so many bars, fewer, but then also there's more of these organizations. Some of the things you go to, social, you know, gay organizations, whatever. The churches are in big time. As a matter of fact, there are 4 or 5 church-sponsored teams. I love the fact that one of them is in the A division. There was a joke that goes with that, I'll save it. But, you know, this church team that's ready to... But the sponsorship thing has really changed. Not so much with the bars. There's a couple of the names that are in there that are still very key, like the Heretic is still major in there with that, and so forth and so on. But it's kind of different. Also, that there is more than one league. There's another league, that Decatur league I was telling you about, and they've gotten a little bit bigger. They are very women's, but the women's teams are predominant, but they're not all women. There are men's teams playing there, but not very many, and supposedly not very competitive. The league is smaller, but not like tiny. So instead of having 50 teams, they have 36. And then one of the things I did find interesting is that they have like 4 or 5 A teams only. But having said that, the C and D division C's always been good because it's right in that middle. So you got a lot of this skill level able to be on there, because as a coach I can tell you, I can pick a couple of these and my number will still be okay to keep me in this. It's going to mean I'm going to have a couple of folks, okay, just be a catcher, catch the ball, throw it back to the pitcher, you'll be fine. Roll it is okay too. But then at the same time, I need to have a couple of folks on here that can, you know, catch the outfielders in particular. I want my talent, my shortstop, my pitcher, my shortstop, and my outfielders. Not so much right, but these 3. I want stars. And so there's a good bit of that, but it's still there, still viable, and still going strong, And they're getting ready to go. It's in Tampa, I told you. The World Series is in Tampa this year. Also, there was one other gay league. It was called MIST for many years, and it was predominantly the middle, Indiana, you know, middle, whatever, and they disbanded. And so they have now become part of NAGA. And what I have learned is that now, well, they added 7 cities. So NAGA has substantially grown, gotten larger. So, and Vancouver has joined NAGA.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's that. So it's still there, and I guess the seed is planted. That was my contribution.
Well, it's been really fun and interesting to talk about another piece of Atlanta gay history that I don't think a ton of people know about. I think this is going to be really great for researchers to learn about.
Well, I appreciate you spinning the wheel, because as you would bring up things, then I would think of, and here we go, and whatever, and I hope I didn't get off track too many
No, not
times.
at all. I'm really, really grateful for you doing this, Greg. This has been phenomenal.
Well,
So
gratitude's
thank
all
you.
mine. Thank you so much for allowing me to share. That much I appreciate.
You have a very good memory.
Yeah, for now. Keep the privilege in.